Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week my supporters on Patreon voted for Bayo. In paper this is Electro, a 3-mana 2/3 flyer, saying we don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end, and whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell we get to add a red mana to our mana pool. And then finally, when Bayo leaves the battlefield, that's whether it gets destroyed, bounced or exiled, we get to spend any amount of mana we have to deal X damage to target player. So if we stored up a whole bunch of mana and our opponent eventually removes Bayo, at least we'll get a ton of damage out of it. So Bayo is going to be at its best in a deck with a lot of cheap instants and sorceries, ideally ones that draw cards, so we can essentially play a 1-mana card draw spell for free with Bayo in play, and then if we pair that with other cost reduction effects, maybe some card draw spells that also generate treasure tokens, and before you know it we can cast a bunch of spells in the same turn, maybe finish off our opponent with a lethal storm spell like Grape Shot, or we can just assemble some other win conditions that trigger off casting instants and sorceries. So that's kind of our plan in a nutshell. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with the mana category. We still have a few of the classic ramp artifacts and mana creatures, but we also want to diversify here with other effects that maybe get a red mana whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, since those will naturally play well alongside Bayo. And then we also have a whole section dedicated to card draw effects. Got a lot of cheap 1-mana cantrips that are perfect with our commander. Also have some more expensive ones, but those usually make treasures in the process. And then I've got a double dip section, as I like to call it, which will often copy instants and sorcery spells we cast, so those can also set up a powerful turn. Then we've got our additional finishers, if you will, that can maybe be creatures that deal damage whenever we cast an instant or sorcery or other cards along those lines. And then finally we've got a few burn spells if we need to interact with opposing creatures, but they can also go face. But we also have a lot of effects to maybe get them back out of the graveyard, so a single burn spell might be used several times. So that's our deck once again in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana section. Chromox can lead to some explosive starts. We've got Strike It Rich making a treasure, great with our commander in play as it actually nets us mana. We've got the Steenkin, if we cast enough red spells it can remove 3 counters to generate triple red, so that also helps in storming off. Then we've got some red creatures that tap for mana. These are pretty recent, the Strike Master and the Zookeeper. Arcane Signet can immediately tap for a red. Ruby Medallion is also very important. Discounting our red spells by 1 makes it much easier to storm off and will generate much more than just 1 mana per turn if we play it right. Then there's Burgi, which similar to Bayo can generate red mana, although this triggers off casting any spell, not only instants and sorceries. We've got Mana Flare. This one can be a double-edged sword, since it also affects the opponent, doubling all our mana, so that can be very nice with Bayo if we can store up a lot of red mana between turns, and then hopefully use it as a way to close out the game if Bayo leaves the battlefield, or we can just use it to string together more card draw spells and hopefully take over. Then Relic of Legends is also good with all the legendary creatures throughout, can make additional red mana to help us combo. Stormkiln Artist triggers off not only casting spells but also copying spells, making a treasure each time, so that can also be pretty fun with any of our storm cards. We've got Ashling as another payoff for casting lots of instants and sorceries, as we get to maybe discard and draw, but also generate some additional mana. Then there's Chandra, which can be used as removal with a -3, but will often be plussing to add double red. Then Urabrask, another card that rewards us for casting lots of instants and sorceries, making a red mana each time. Can also transform it into an enchantment, which helps us get those spells back from the graveyard eventually. Ironcrag Feat is the only red ritual we have access to on Arena, but it is a pretty good one, making 7 red mana at once, and even though we can only cast 1 more spell this turn, if we have Bayo in play, that red mana is not going to go to waste, so we'll still be able to use it on subsequent turns. Pyromancer's Goggles can also be very fun, copying our instant and sorcery spells we cast using its red mana. Goldspan Dragon can double the mana from our treasures, so plays well with all the other treasure generators, and is also just a good source of additional mana. Then Gilded Lotus can immediately tap for triple red, and Cage Sun is pretty similar to Mana Flare, but it's one-sided this time, doubling the mana from our red lands, and then also giving our red creatures +1/+1. Then we've got lots of cantrips at 1 mana. Ideally, these don't need to target a creature, so we can cast them no matter the board state, like Crash Through, giving creatures trample. We also have the 1 mana Warlord's Fury, giving First Strike. Crimson Wisps needs to target a creature, but it also can give a creature haste, which can sometimes come in handy, similar to Expedite. Then Faithless Looting lets us draw 2 and then discard 2, so discard disadvantage, but at least we can also flash it back and lets us see a lot of cards. There's Magmatic Insight, need to discard a land to draw 2, and then a Ryle can deal 1 to our own creature to draw a card. And then at 2 mana there's Artist's Talents, which we can also maybe level up to give our non-creature spells a 1 mana discount, but either way, whenever we cast a non-creature spell we get to discard and draw, so it can also help us go through the deck a lot faster. Highway Robbery can be plotted so we can cast it later once we have our commander down to discard and draw 2, can even sacrifice a land to draw 2 if we're about to combo off. The Rendezvous has a bit of upside if we're empty-handed, as then we'll simply be able to draw 2 cards, since discarding is not an additional cost in this one. We've got Fable, which is also great, making treasures with the Shaman, helping improve our hand with Chapter 2, and then Reflection has some neat applications. Even though it's not an instant or sorcery, I still like including it. Flick a Coin can deal 1, make a treasure, and draw a card, so especially good if we can give it a bit of a discount, and then with Bayo in play and a 1 mana discount effect, it's essentially free. Then there's Seize the Spoils to discard, draw 2, and make a treasure. Got Valakut Awakening, can be played as a land or as a way to improve our hand. Fast/Furious can either discard and draw, also fine to cast if we're empty-handed to just draw 2 cards, and then the Furious half can be a board wipe that does not affect our commander. Big Score, Pirate's Pillage, and Windfall all let us discard, draw 2, and make 2 treasure tokens. Then Jaya can also maybe improve our hand, but can also generate mana to cast instant and sorcery spells. Bedlam Reveler, if we have lots of instants and sorceries in our graveyard, can be cast on the cheap, discarding our hand to draw 3, so ideally we're empty-handed. Then our double dip section has a few ways to copy the next instant and sorcery spell we cast with Twinferno, can also give double strike. We've got Dual Strike, which can be foretold, although is limited to spells with mana value 4 or less. Flare of Duplication can maybe sacrifice a red creature to cast it for free. And then Repeated Reverberation will copy the next spell we cast twice, can also apply to a Planeswalker's loyalty ability, so it has a few different applications. Then Underworld Breach can help us replay spells out of the graveyard if we have enough things to exile, so this one would be a little bit better if we had fetch lands in the mana base, but I'm keeping things simple so we don't have to take a bunch of damage. Then we also have Mystic's Mastery, can cast 1 spell out of the graveyard, or if we overload it, can cast all our instants and sorceries, so it can also be a lot of fun. Past in Flames will give our spells flashback until end of turn, can also flash it back out of the graveyard. And then there's Invoke Calamity, which can get back an instant and sorcery with mana value 6 or less that we get to cast out of the graveyard. And Final If Promise is pretty similar, can also get back an instant and a sorcery that we get to cast right away. And then our win conditions include Smoldering Egg. Once we transform it, we get to deal 2 damage to any target whenever casting an instant or sorcery, so it can also target opposing creatures. Thermo Alchemist will untap, dealing 1 damage each time. Gutafire Inscription dealing 2 whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell. Gutter Snipe is very similar on a 2/2 creature. Kazul's Fury is a combo with our commander. If we build up our mana, we can just sacrifice it to deal a bunch of damage, since we can just sink all our mana into the ability. Storm Splitter, another nice Storm payoff card. If we can cast lots of spells at the same turn, we can just attack with a ton of 1/4 haste creatures. Chandra, Hope's Beacon, can also do a lot of things, including dealing damage to opponents or opposing creatures, but can also go digging for additional instants and sorceries. Then the Rite of the Dragon Caller gets to make a 5/5 flyer each time we cast an instant or sorcery. And then at the Endstone is kind of a win condition, kind of a card draw spell, but if we can get this down, we get to draw a card whenever we play a land or cast a spell, so then it's going to be pretty hard to fizzle out. And then we've got a few burn spells, Chain Lightning, a recent addition to the format, alongside Lightning Bolt. Spikefield Hazard can either deal damage or be played as a land. Grapeshot, our only actual Storm card, could also play with Empty the Warrens, although I found Grapeshot to be a bit more reliable as a win condition. Then there's Amizium Mortars to deal 4 or maybe Overloaded to deal 4 to all opposing creatures. And then Shadowskull Smashing also could be played as a land or as a nice removal spell. And then our mana base is nice and streamlined. We have the Regency, which can also make a token that will ping the opponent each time, and then we can still play the land from exile. 34 Mountains, and then Ancient Tomb can also lead to some more explosive starts. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump in some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Scarab God, blue-black, maybe zombies, maybe just good stuff. Yeah, I guess we'll try this. Pillage, trying to ramp out the Endstone, and maybe that can take over. Opponent with a Waste Not, so maybe more of a discard deck after all. And yeah, that's actually going to punish cards like Pirate's Pillage, because if I discard a card, it'll trigger the opponent's Waste Not as well. And now Deluge wipes the board. Back to the command zone. Might still be worth it to pillage. Mizzy Mortars isn't doing much for me at the moment. Although I could eventually copy it with the goggles to temporarily deal with the Scarab God. But Finale can also get it back, so... our opponent will draw. And next turn I can hope to resolve the Endstone. Although it's gonna lose me a bunch of life initially. And Burglar Rat makes me discard. Probably ditch a land, although then they can maybe cast even more discard spells afterwards. Could also see discarding the Finale, although it could be nice to get back a Pillage, even though that once again triggers Waste Not. So maybe I just keep my 2 artifacts, let them draw. And then I could start with the goggles and wait a little bit longer on the Endstone. Although, yeah, I guess our opponent could have a counter spell too. So maybe we'll test out the waters with the goggles. And then next turn I could maybe Endstone, play a land. A rat might get sacrificed to a Phyrexian Tower to ramp out the Scarab God. Could have attacked for 1 first, I suppose. It's going to be an Archive. And we get to untap. Alright, I think I'm down. Endstone. Don't think this will get countered. And then playing a land will draw. Could go for smashing, but might actually use it as removal. Okay, so gonna lose half of my life total. Opponent's gonna draw. Maybe setting up the Scarab God to reanimate stuff. Yep, see Nezahal discarded as well as Champion of Wits, which was a pretty nice combo with the Scarab God. Bring it back, draw 4. And Liliana can also make me discard.
Something suspicious. And for once it's not my
Smashing can target Planeswalkers. Does that mean I ditch the Fable? Yeah, it's pretty bad with Waste Not in play. So yeah, their enchantment's been doing a lot of work. Now Warlord's Fury I can maybe copy with the goggles. Could try playing my commander first. Although it's unlikely to survive since they can always minus Liliana next turn. So, sure, we'll start with Fury. Find Burgi. Also Nombo if I play the Horn. So, let's see. Yeah, Jaya only makes mana for instants and sorceries. Playing a land will still draw a card. And then still have 7 mana plus a treasure. So we can still do some cool things. Maybe I just get Jaya down. The +1 also a Nombo with Waste Not. Could go Relic into Jaya. Grape Shots. Alright, we are slowly increasing our storm count, I suppose. So Jaya can +2 make mana, since I don't want to discard. Opponent's gonna Soul Shatter immediately, answering Jaya.
Let's see how you manage this.
So then, could just Grape Shot to finish off Liliana, I suppose.
Regret that.
And then save the Crimson Wisps for next turn. Ooh, opponent with a wash away, so I guess I got punished for
Watch it.
pointing the last Grape Shot at our opponent instead of at Liliana. Although maybe it's not a terrible thing, because now they ended up wasting a wash away when it could have countered my commander. Ooh, Arden, that's a problem. Can immediately reanimate a creature from the graveyard. They might have something left that they want to reanimate.
You won't be out.
Probably don't have enough life to afford Ancient Tomb, although I guess going back up to 13 makes it kind of free. They just discarded a land. So they're going to bring something back that's already in the graveyard, presumably Nazahal. Yep. Take 5. So Nazahal says discard 3 cards to return it. So currently they cannot pay for that, so I could just smashing deal with a bunch of the opponent's stuff. And then whenever I cast a non-creature spell they draw, so I need to start here basically. And then I get to maybe copy it with the goggles. So X equals can do, let's say, 6. 5 here, 1 there. I guess it's also doubling the damage now. So yeah, I could have started with taking out Arden, I suppose. So Nazahal is super dead. We draw. Down goes Liliana.
I'm not interested in
And then now I can still Windfall or Big Score. Although that would trigger Waste Not, but if I discard a land, they don't really get the benefits. Okay. So we're slowly digging towards a win condition. The artist can make additional treasure. Now Scarab God can immediately activate, bring back Arden, which in turn can bring something else back. That works. But at least now Arden's exiled if we answer it once again. Champion of Wits will draw. 5 in fact. Discard 2. Can set up Arden for next turn. So yeah, I kinda need to combo off next turn. But between Bergie, Artist, Bayo, we might get there. Every legend also taps with Relic. And our opponent's tapped out. Okay, so step 1, cast Bergie. Then we're going to want to play the Artists. Invoke Calamity could be decent. Got a Grape Shot to maybe burn them out. Now I first probably still have enough mana to play my commander. And then now we want to copy a card draw spell. Discarding probably a non-land card so they don't make mana and cast a removal spell out of nowhere. So can make it the Crimson Wisps. So our opponent simply draws. But now we make a bunch of mana. Bunch of treasure. So it's just a matter of increasing my storm count. They can have a zombie. Discard Zookeeper. Alright, could just cast a big awakening here. Doesn't count as discarding, so it's not going to trigger Waste Not at least. I'll select everything except Flare and invoke Calamity. Alright, there's a Gutter Snipe. So play Medallion, play Gutter Snipe, and then we should have it here. Mizzix's Mastery could also be a fun finisher. Opponent's at 31, so we do have to go through the motions pretty quickly. Steamkin can make more mana, but now the timer's our biggest enemy. Could have also given Artist double strike, I suppose. Can maybe do it on the way back. Alright, options aplenty. Let's invoke. Choose to Inferno. Double strike. And then we can maybe Grape Shots. And I hope not to time out, because I've definitely played with Grape Shot before, where then it auto-targeted my face with all the remaining copies on the stack. Artist also triggers off copies, like the Storm copies. So I've got a million treasure. Tempted to overload Mizzix's Mastery. Could also Kazul's Fury, sack the Artist, and that'll be game. So we don't even have to attack. Alright, that was fun. Still plenty of cards in library. So yeah, we can pretty much do whatever we want here. Can still get back a sorcery. Make it a Pirate's Pillage. Make sure not to give the opponent any mana. And then I guess we can still go for, doesn't matter, crash through. So I guess we're just going to end it with Gutter Snipe after all. But yeah, you can pick whichever win condition you'd like, whether it's attacking or maybe going for Kazul's Fury, overload Mizzix's Mastery, can Past in Flames, replay everything from the graveyard, or now Storm Splitter also would have been pretty fun. And then we can just make a lethal army of 1/4 Otter tokens, which would have been pretty fun to see. But yeah, there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Muldrotha, so a Sultai graveyard deck. Hand seems decent. Can start with a medallion, then Bayo plus talents. Could also set up a turn 3 Chandra. And then Chandra, making mana, can still cast Bayo afterwards. With the Reveler, we kind of just want to be empty-handed, so we get to eventually draw 3. Opponent's got the Signets into Traverse Valley. Okay, we'll stick to the plan. So now 4 mana. Hopefully they can at most deal with 1 permanent. I do have Casualties of War in the back of my mind, so that could deal with a ton of different permanents at once. But we're still pretty far from it. Okay, Pirate's Pillage is promising. So Chandra, happy to make mana. Can play Gutter Snipe into maybe Talent first, actually. Into Gutter Snipe, although I don't really want to discard the Reveler to the Pirate's Pillage. So I could just level up the talent. They might have a counterspell mana drain, in fact. Okay. So they'll get 3 mana next turn. I'll just level up. Hit you for 2, and then hopefully they can't ramp out anything too devastating. Although I've just added another card type for Casualties of War. They can go Creature, Land, Artifact, Planeswalker. Cyclonic Rift is also pretty backbreaking here. So back to my hands. Gotta start all over. So Medallion, or maybe Chandra first. Into Medallion. So Muldrotha will be able to get back the fetch lands. No other self-mill synergies so far. So do we see Muldrotha? Nope, it's going to be a Nature's Rhythm for 4. Maybe an Ice Still Explorer to mill and get back the fetch land, yep. Although that does die to Chandra. But they'll get their value in the meantime, milling another counterspell. Okay, so yeah, Explorer's gotta go. And then I can still go Bayo, maybe into Pirate's Pillage. Or we could establish a right, but I'm not making a dragon right now. So then deal with that. Bayo into Pillage. Discard the talent. Okay, and then don't need to do anything else. And there's Muldrotha. Get back a land. Take my turn. And then we'll start by making mana. Can get rights down. Flick a coin, goes face. Can expedite our dragon. Make another one. Find a Chrome Mox. I would still rather cast a Looting, make another dragon. Okay, Finale's looking good too. Robbery's basically free. Can even sacrifice a land. So then now finale for how much? I want to get back Expedite as an instant, and then probably a robbery or pirate's pillage as a sorcery. So X equals 4 could work. Another dragon gains haste. Make more dragons. Can keep going with seize the spoils. And then egg into Fury, into Reveler, probably. Yeah, don't really need the Strike Master. Okay, can still flashback looting, maybe find something. To Inferno for double strike. Does that do it here? And go ahead and attack. It's not quite lethal, but it's still worth going for, I think. So our opponent's probably going to cast a board wipe now, but then we should still be in reasonable shape. So our opponent's going to start by fetching. Down to 2, so now if I deal 2 with Bayo, they're also dead. Solve the equation, can get a sweeper. River's Rebuke will just bounce everything. Alright, I mean that's a temporary solution since I can just play Chandra and deal 2 to them. Plus, never mind, Bayo triggers off leaving the battlefield, so that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Fate Thief. So at the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left, discard, and then heist. I see. Well, I think we've got a keeper here. Play tapped Spike Field, turn 2 Medallion. Turn 3 maybe get our commander down. Okay, play Medallion. Nothing from our opponent so far. So, interesting spot. Could go for talent into my commander. And wait on Orobrask a little bit longer. Sure. Sadly, talent does not trigger Bayo, it's only instants and sorceries. And no removal end of turn. And now a talisman. Into Grief, so that's gonna have a look. Okay, so probably deals with Orobrask. Maybe they're scared of the Mizzium Mortars. And a Feign Death is our opponent with the Rakdos Scam trick, as it's known. Immediately bringing back a Grief, so they get to take something else. Yeah, that's pretty effective. Alright, so I do not have much left. Although I could still gutter snipe into Mizzium Mortars. A leveling of the talent doesn't do much at the moment. So sure, we'll attack. Still pretty far from a overloaded Mizzy Mortars, so we'll just deal with the grief. And then Cage Sun can probably go. Need to find more card draw. Battle Reveler could be awesome if we can cast it soon. Gets to refresh our hands. And now Necromancy can bring back a grief once again. Can't catch a break. Alright, fast. Discard a card, draw 2, so if I'm empty-handed I just draw 2, so that's nice. Do we level up the talent? I think I do. Alright, can still seize, or we can keep the finale. Now let's keep it going. Get some damage from our Gutter Snipe. And then play land and pass. And then we could still level up the talent once more. Which would also make the Gutter Snipe scarier. And then get in for 2. So we are on empty, but if we draw any instant or sorcery, we could deal a lot of damage. Now Cruelty could make me discard again, but they might immediately start from chapter 2 or 3. Seize a Chrome Mox. And the Mana Flare can make even more mana here, but that seems a little dangerous when our opponent's about to tutor with chapter 2. Would give me a redraw with a talent. Could also Chrome Mox to get a redraw, to be fair. Although, I mean, this is kind of a piñata if I can build up my mana that they won't be able to kill. So maybe I do risk it with a Mana Flare. Could backfire spectacularly as we draw land. Okay, so Gutter Snipe and Bayo attack. And then, do I even play the land? If I draw an effect that requires me to discard, it may not be worth it. So now our opponent also has double the mana, so they can get their most expensive spell. It's gonna be a Magda for now. Into a Thought Distortion. Well, I was kind of empty-handed anyway. Make sure to float all the mana. Draw Mizzix's Mastery, but our opponent just emptied my graveyard. Can still cast it, and then cantrip with talent, deal 4 with a Gutter Snipe, thanks to the talent here. I guess I cannot even cast it normally, I have to overload it. That's funny, because there's no target. Alright. Did not draw the spell we needed, so our opponent will still survive. So now our opponent gets to maybe reanimate a Bedlam Reveler. And draw a bunch of cards. Although Bayo is lethal, and if they take it out, it's also lethal, so they need to somehow gain life or maybe exile it. No, it's when it leaves the battlefield, so exiling is not good enough. So they just need to deal 22 damage, I guess. They've got the Soul Trader. Can lead to some infinite combos. Archenemy Charm for lifelink, alright, so I guess they found a way. Can gain 5. Make sure to float all the mana. Opponent gets to heist. And a Fable. That's also a redraw. And Ancient Tomb we'll keep in hand, I guess. So gotta keep Bayo on defense. They can't attack into it. Past in Flames. Now it's in my graveyard, so I can flash it back. Unless they Thought Distortion me again, I guess. They can also Archenemy Charm again for lifelink. So things are heating up. They're gonna target their own Grief again. Attack. Double block Grief. And they're gonna feign death, sure. And gain 7, take 1,000,000. Or they can just sack the Grief with a Soul Trader now, but then they don't gain any life. A Murderous Rider is a token. Make more treasure. Magda can eventually make a dragon as well. Alright, damage happens. And then back to the command zone. And then I would like to deal damage, please. So we have 8 floating, can float 8 more. So that's 16. Directly to the face, please. And there we go. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Viggo, so Jund. Our hand seems reasonable. Probably fine to cycle, crash through, can later get it back with Underworld Breach. Trying to work our way up towards the Endstone. Don't necessarily expect my commander to survive. So then finding some treasures to get to 7 mana would be nice. As our opponent's got elves. Yeah, maybe I should looting, maybe I'll find some ramp cards. Steamkin could be good. For now, maybe discard Past in Flames, can always flash it back later. And then Jaya might be ambitious. Wanna just keep hitting my land drops. Now a Mind Stone. And a Chrome Mox. I'll keep Chrome Mox in hand for now. And just cast my commander, I think. That likely gets removed. Then next turn, can go for Steamkin. We'll see. Play Crafter. They can sack the elves to later get it back with Viggo, but they're just gonna sack itself. And then back to the command zone. Had I played Chrome Mox, I guess I could have dealt 1 to my opponents, but not all that impressive. Okay, so can still go Steamkin into Rendezvous. Maybe I don't need Breach when I have Past in Flames. Alright, the lands are fine. Although I still need something to imprint if I want to use a Chrome Mox. So our opponent can cast the backside of Viggo. 5/5 Menace Trample Haste. Can sack things to draw cards. And put more stuff in play. That puts an Ancient Tomb. And draw a Ruby Medallion. Okay, so can't quite Medallion plus Bayo. Could just cast Bayo. And then maybe next turn with a flashback looting, we enable the Steamkin. But our opponent's got a lot of mana here. The Midnight Sky also makes sense to sacrifice. They get to draw 5, I get to discard 2. Never mind, they're just gonna get back Playcrafter. Steamkin might actually be more valuable here. So they didn't have any better permanents to put in play, except a land. Probably means they have a bunch of removal in hand now. And Deathrite Shaman can also exile my Past in Flames. So I need to make use of it while I can. So still a little bit short of casting the Endstone. Since I could play Chromox, pitch Windfall, but then I'm not using the Steamkin and my land enters tapped. So then... because yeah, I cannot imprint the land, can I? Yeah, non-artifact, non-land. Past in Flames. Could do some damage here. So maybe that's a fine starting point. Use Steamkin. Can draw. Maybe now go Medallion first. And then I can still Rendezvous. Chromox. Pitch. I want to say the Talent, and then I can still cast a Looting for 1 mana. Trigger Steamkin. Keep the ball rolling. Okay, what do we discard? Flick a coin, Gutter Snipe probably. So I could attack first. And then I could still Windfall. Or I could keep my counters for next turn. Because I'm probably going to Windfall and then I wouldn't be able to cast much else afterwards. Alright, let's see what our opponent can come up with now. Deathrite could also mess with our graveyard. It's going to be a Bygone Colossus, a Warped. So that's a pretty good one to sacrifice to Viggo. Draw 9 cards. And put something expensive into play, so... yeah, pretty nice synergy with the Warp mechanic. Opponent is at 8 somehow from all their fetch lands and Ancient Tomb. Puts in a Coalstoke, a Gearhulk. Gets back Playcrafter. So I guess I'm casting the Windfall now. Does keeping Endstone make sense? Invoke Calamity, can get back an instant and sorcery. Yeah, it's not all that impressive, especially with the Deathrite, so I'll keep the Endstone. Goodbye, Steamkin. Fall to 9. Now a Hierarch into a Spinner of Souls. So there's maybe still a chance we can burn them out from 8. I guess they can also gain 2 with Deathrite. So it's still gonna take a pretty special sequence here. And a Galta, 12-12. And draw land, so first we want to cast the Endstone, I imagine. Then play a land, which will draw. And then hope to string together something. Chandra, I'm a little bit short of casting. Find a Misium Mortars. And an Ironcrag feat, which I'm so close to casting here. But not quite. So, yeah. Ironcrag feat into Chandra. I could have dealt 5 damage to my opponent. And now I guess I could cast the Mortars, get a redraw, and then there's maybe still a chance I draw into something useful, although I kind of doubt it. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. Get rid of the Gearhulk. And draw a card. Strike it rich. Just replaces itself here. So I am increasing my storm count. Could still maybe top deck a Grape Shot, but I don't think that would be for enough. Draw lands, make a treasure. Go back up to 13, but our opponent can easily close out the game here. Alright, GG's. Still good to have some fun. And seeing some neat synergies if you're interested in building a Viggo deck. Yeah, this would have been easier with the extra mana from our commander, that's for sure. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Chulane, so banned creature ramp deck. Our hand is functional. A Ruby Medallion is always nice. So I'll hang on to the Crash Through, even though I may miss a land drop. Start with Medallion. And then could play Bayo, could get the Steamkin going. Priest of Titania, currently the only elf. Alright, might have to Steamkin into Crash Through, hope to hit a land drop. Or we could Chain Lightning, but drawing a land would be nice. Alright, it's a tapped one for now. Removing a single creature likely wouldn't have prevented them from playing Chulane, so this seems fine. Get to untap. And then now we can do some damage. Play Bayo. Strike it rich. Trigger Steamkin and Bayo. Steamkin makes mana. Could also attack first since mana doesn't go away. But yeah, I think we can get up to 3 counters again pretty easily. So now I may want to Gutter Snipe. And then I can still flick a coin. Take care of the priest. Could also both flick and Chain Lightning Chulane. But we'll deal with the mana elves. Flashback, strike it rich. Now I can go ahead and attack. And then if I Chain Lightning face, can finally for 3 get back Flicker Coin. So yeah, I can actually finish off Chulane. I don't think I'll quite have enough for lethal. So I should have made mana with Steamkin first. Might actually want to Crash Through to draw. Or we can just clear all creatures. A lot of triggers. Okay. So as the dust settles, we've got a lot of mana. So if Bayo dies, we can just deal a bunch of damage. Do not have a sacrifice outlet to facilitate that. But I guess if the Bayoth attacks, I'm game. So our opponent's gonna pass. No need to float any additional mana. Chandra is pretty good too here. Can just clear the Bayoth and attack for 8. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Vannifar. So our opponent's going to be hiding some expensive cards and then turning them face up. We've got a Keeper. A Zookeeper, in fact. Do I cycle Crash Through? I think I can wait. Now a Secret Plains. Pumping face down cards. So if they play Vannifar, I'm gonna try and remove it right away. Opponent going for a Cryptic Code now. 3-3 thanks to the Secret Plains. Could even Ironcrank Feet, but that doesn't really help me. Unless I want to just play the Goldspan Dragon. If I play Chandra, they can hit it for 3. If I make 2 mana with it, that doesn't really help. What if I play my commander? Can still cycle a Crash Through. That might be better. And then we've got a land for next turn. The floating mana doesn't go away. Opponent equips the blade now, 5-5. And a Curious Obsession. Well, I was not expecting them to go all in on one creature like this. But here we are. And get to untap, draw the Endstone. That would be fun to get in play. Could Ironcrank Feed into it. Currently, I'm above half of my life total, so it would lose me life. So I could just cast a Goldspan Dragon and see where we're at. And then next turn maybe plan something big. Just get in with my flyers. And for now, pass a turn. Put an end step stop to make sure I make mana with a Zookeeper. Opponent had an Analyst in play. Can essentially draw them cards. And now Vannifar. So we'll make a mana. Okay, so I probably don't want to Ironcrank Feed if the plan is Endstone into more things afterwards. But I can attack, make more mana with Goldspan, and then at the very least Chandra deals with Vannifar. And then don't want to play my land yet. So we get the most out of this. And draw Burgi, that could be great. Although I think for now I need to play Chandra. Wouldn't have the mana to do anything else really. Could go Ironcrank Feet into Chandra, I suppose. That frees up more mana for next turn. And the floating mana's not gonna go away. And then we're okay with Chandra dying. So 13, I guess we lost 1 life still. But next turn with Chain Lightning, Past in Flames and Burgi, we might see some fireworks. Opponent had a Smuggler face down, so that's 11 coming in. So that's almost lethal. Now a Summons. So they're not going for Chandra, but of course if they don't deal lethal damage, the Endstone just brings us right back to 13. So then they may as well keep blockers back. But of course they can also draw with a Curse Obsession, so those attacks made sense. Okay, let's keep it going. Play my land, draw a card. Then I get to Past in Flames at some point, maybe start with Burgi. Could also play the Rights, but opponent does have an unblockable threat, so... Yeah, let's see here. So pretty sure that if I just Chain Lightning and then Past in Flames Chain Lightning, we'll have enough. And yeah, our opponent has seen enough already, but this would have been a pretty sweet turn with Burgi making mana alongside our commander, the Endstone drawing cards, can at some point Past in Flames, get back more cantrips, make more mana, draw more cards, and then at some point we can just end the game with maybe Right making a bunch of dragons, or we could find some other burn spells to get the job done. Alright, so we got to see this mono-red Storm deck in action, and yeah, if Bayo sticks around, it can do some serious damage with your other Storm enablers and payoff cards. It is a deck that requires a bit of setup and can be soft to a lot of disruption, taking out your key enablers and other discount cards. But if you get to go off, it can be incredibly satisfying. Just gotta be careful not to time out. But for now, I wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.